guys, Jess from Knockout Print Shop. So today I have a video for you about finances, budgeting, our expense tracker, all that stuff. I've been meaning to make a video about how I do my finances and haven't done it yet. So now I'm doing it and wanted to go through my process with you. So let me start off by saying I don't typically use our expense tracker. I am much more of a digital app and Excel person when it comes to finances and budgeting. I don't find pen and paper really works for my brain and how I keep track of things. That said, I totally understand that there's many people that prefer to put pen to paper. It makes it more real. It helps them see it. It helps them connect with it versus it being kind of like in the digital world and it doesn't seem real. So whether you're team paper or team digital, I think explaining my process may be interesting to you or helpful, or maybe you can tell me below kind of how you do your process. So let me start off by saying that the way I typically do things, how we have our stuff set up. So we have quite a few different checking and savings accounts. So we have our business savings account, our business checking account where all of our business transactions go, expenses and deposits and all of that. Then we have two personal checking accounts. We have one personal checking account that is strictly for monthly bills, and then we have another personal checking account that is for all other spending. And then we have our savings accounts, which are also divided up into emergency savings, that's one account, general savings is another account, and then our sinking funds savings is a third account, and then we have our IRA. So we have quite a few things going on, but just in general, I wanted to give you a breakdown of that. Now, the reason that I break down our checking accounts, our personal checkings into bills and spending is it's easier for us to keep track of. So when we pay ourselves, because we're self-employed, both Matt and I run the print shop, so when we pay ourselves each month, I pay half of our paycheck into our bills account and the other into our spending account. So I pay our bills account with what we need to pay all of our monthly bills, our rent, our utilities, that's basically it, rent and utilities and insurance and things like that. And so those things are all on auto debit. So I put the money in there and all of the auto debits get scheduled throughout the month. I do keep track of, I'm not going to open it because obviously that's personal information, but I do use the Checkbook Whiz app. And in there, I put in our deposit. It's just like a digital checkbook. And then I put in all of the auto debits, the expenses that are going to come out, just so I know that I have enough in there, so that we don't really keep a lot in there. I think $100 just in case something happened to slip by that's on auto debit that I don't know of, which is not going to happen, but there's always nice to have that little tiny buffer in there. But that account is strictly for bills. Put enough to pay the bills get extracted automatically, and again, just as a safety backup, I kind of balance that checking account with Checkbook Whiz and make sure we're good there. Other than that, that account doesn't really get touched. Now the spending account is where this sheet would come in handy for me if I was going to be using it. Obviously I used it this month to show you, but we have our personal spending account, and that's again where we do groceries, eating out, entertainment, home stuff, gas, all of that comes out of that account. I use mint.com, and I think there's an app too, but I do it on my desktop. I use mint.com to put each transaction into the particular budget, to set the budget each month that, we want to spend X on groceries, X on going out to eat, and then I will use Mint to set that and then coordinate each transaction to it, so that I can at any time every day look at that and go, okay, well, we set this much aside for groceries and we're right here now. So that's how I keep track of our more variable expenses. I try to keep this as simple as possible because I don't like having to manage too much things and it gets overwhelming. Now to kind of top it all off before I get into the details of this, I also have an Excel spreadsheet. So again, I'm running my fixed bills every month out of one checking account and just balancing that checking account to make sure we don't have any issues. Then I have my spending checking account where all of our variable expenses are coming out of. I budget it using the mint.com app or, software online. And then I take an overall view of every category and every bill across the whole year through an Excel spreadsheet where I have, and if maybe I will kind of make a file of that to give you guys, if that's something you're interested in. Let me know if you would like to see like a blank version of that. Just comment below and I'll put together something. But across the top I have every month, and then down the side I have my bills. So I'll have like rent, electricity, water, and then I kind of have those, what's the total of the fixed expenses, and then second one is variable expenses. It'll say like groceries, coffee, going out to eat, and then I total at the end. So then I can see from January through December the changes in our spending, how close we were to each budget, things like that. So I just like to see that so I know when things are changing, I can plan better, I can see stuff like that. Okay, so that's kind of an overview of what we do. And then I wanted to use this twofold, to kind of try and see if I wanted to go back to pen and paper and see how I liked this, and two, to just kind of use it in real time and show you guys how I would use it if I was going to purchase this. So not my best handwriting, up here kind of put my major categories. Our major category that we spend probably 25 to 30% of our income on is food. So that's my first section. Eating out would be the second. So it's any kind of restaurants, whether it's brunch or lunch or dinner. Coffee shops for us comes under like recreation and entertainment, because we're not really excessive in our spending. We don't go out to eat a lot. So coffee shops are kind of our thing where we'll go and hang out, and it's more of a social thing than under our food category. Obviously we have pets, so we have our pet care section. Home stuff would be, I separate this out from groceries. This might be buying like paper towels, aluminum foil, anything related to home supplies stuff. That's in that section. Obviously gas. And then personal is going to be, makeup, a haircut, things like that, random stuff like that. So we don't have a ton of spending categories. We are not huge spenders, but this will just give you kind of an idea. We save a ton of money. We're kind of minimalist. So even though you're going to probably like, excuse my French, shit your pants, and you're like, holy shit, she spends a lot on food. We spend barely anything on everything else. And let me add too that we don't have car payments. We don't have any debt. So we run on a cash only basis, and where somebody else might have to spend more on a car payment or other kinds of expenses, we prioritize eating really, really good, high quality food. So that costs us a little bit more. We eat local, we eat Beyond Organic, stuff like that. So you're going to see a pretty hefty price tag in the food section. So anyways, we'll get more to that when I hit the totals. But so that's how I would do it. Obviously, if you are expense tracking right now and you're not using a category system, you need to, in my opinion, stop what you're doing and categorize this out. There's, if you just want to run some running totals to see how much you spend every month, that's great. But that's not going to really give you enough detail to figure out where you need to make changes. Saying you spend $4,000 a month is great, but where did each of those pennies go, those dollars go? So you really need to break it up into categories of where it's going, and yours can be totally different. Obviously everybody has a different lifestyle, so that's why we left these blank. I didn't want to put anything specific in here when we designed this, because everybody's so different that you need to have the flexibility to categorize your spending categories to match the way you spend money. So obviously you have the date over here, you have the expense, meaning the place that you spent the money, and then your categories and your amounts. So I don't use this for bills. So you're not going to see rent in here. You're not going to see utilities, insurance, things like that. This again is the purpose of this is for variable spending like groceries and gas and things like that. So basically what I did was I went through, wrote the date, wrote the place, and wrote the amount. I used the darker line. So there's two sets of grid, like two lines, heights of grid, and then there's a dark line. For me, with my handwriting, I needed 2 lines. So you can see I use the height of 2 lines. If you have a lot of expenses and you write really small, you might be able to get away with doing 1 line height, but you'd have to have pretty tiny writing. So I didn't write totals on this first page. I didn't write totals till I got to the back. So as far as my experience with using our expense tracker for the first time. I will say that by getting to the end of the month, I probably had one or two more transactions than this. So I had to kind of, just do the total based on what was, you can see my head in the frame, what was in the accounts in the mint.com app to know what the total was for each of these categories. So I think there might be times, depending on how you spend, that this amount of space front and back may or may not be enough. You may need 2 of these a month, just again, depending on how often you're spending, what you're spending, shopping habits are like and things like that. So obviously, So I went through the month and wrote down each expense, put it in each category. You could always definitely total this page and carry that total over to the other side. I personally didn't do that. I just kept going. And here's what we ended up with. So in our groceries, food is just groceries, we're at $1,343. So $1,343 in groceries per month. That's about average for us for 2 people. So people sometimes think this is insane. And even people like Dave Ramsey will suggest for food that food should be like 5 to 15% of your income. This is way more than 5 to 15% of our income. We don't have a huge income, but we're defined, but we still devote a lot of money towards food. Food to us is health. So while we don't have, lots of medical, bills, we have none. And we pay our health insurance and things like that, but we don't have other bills to pay. So for us, this is investing in our health. We really believe strongly in eating the best possible food that we can. We go to a local butcher. We shop at Whole Foods and farmers markets. We mostly buy organic. We don't buy a lot of packaged food, both mainly meat, dairy, vegetables. That's pretty much it. So it seems pretty steep for 2 people, obviously, to have a grocery bill that high, but our eating out budget is super low. So for eating out, we ate out and spent $255 this month. For some people, that may be a lot. For us, that's not very much. There was months before in the past where we would spend, $500 or so a month on eating out when you're having a couple cocktails, things like that. That can quickly add up. But for us, that's really not that much. It's spending about $60 a week. We go out once a week to a nice dinner or brunch or something like that. So that is how much we spend on eating out. Coffee, again, we spent $60. We usually spend about $50 to $60 a month on coffee out of the house. And that's just, again, a recreational entertainment thing for us. It's our way to get out of the house because we're in the house all the time working from home. So I don't know if most people would have kind of a separate coffee budget, but we do. And this actually, having a coffee budget helped us see where we were when we were like addicted to Starbucks. And it's actually why we bought our Breville espresso machine. And it has saved us hundreds of dollars a month. It has paid for itself like tenfold. And Matt's like a barista now. So that is more like our recreation thing. Pet care, every other month it's more when we go buy their food, but $36 was just some treats and stuff for them. They usually only go to the vet like once a year, so we have that in a sinking fund, but pet care is usually every other month. It'll be more like in the $100. I think their food is like $80 a bag. Again, the dogs eat good too, so that's just a little expense. Home stuff this month wasn't very much. It was $46. It usually ranges between $50 to $150, depending on if we need to replenish, household supplies and things like that. Gas, $177. This may be an area that somebody might think is fairly low because we don't really commute a lot. So if you're somebody that has a job where you're commuting, your gas bill might be much more than ours. This is about average for us. On the low months, it'll be like $120. On the high months, it'll be like $220, depending on if we've done a lot of like driving around, road trip, exploring stuff. Again, gas is kind of like our entertainment because we get out of the house by driving around and exploring. And then personal, like I said, is going to be personal stuff. Like I think this month was, replenishing some toiletries and things like that. And sometimes it'll be like haircuts, whatever. So that's $67. So you could see we don't have a lot of spending in many of our other categories other than food. That is like our biggest variable expense. We go way beyond what Dave Ramsey says is appropriate or suggested, I should say, for food. Again, if we were to take our food budget and lump it in with our health budget, and even lump it in with like our recreation budget, because cooking is like part of our like fun. If we could like merge all of those percentages together, we'd probably be, that's kind of like what our food is. Because you can see we don't like spend a lot of money like going out to the movies and going and doing things and going out to, you know, drinks for hours and having $100 tabs. So that's just not our lifestyle. So if you're like, holy shit, she spends a lot on food, that's my explanation. And I actually think there's a lot of people that think of, you know, obviously not everybody has the ability financially to spend that much on food, but I also encourage people to think about the fact that if you believe that food can definitely impact your health, then investing in the kind of food you eat might be a good investment of your money versus, you know, spending it on other things. So just a different perspective to think about when, you know, you're going to pay your farmer or you're going to pay your doctor kind of quote. Just that's, you know, little food for thought, no pun intended. But this is the expense tracker, guys. This is how I would use it. I just, again, wanted to give you an overview of how to use this tool and how we do our finances, our basic everyday finances, as far as, you know, spending, budgeting, things like that. I am playing around with creating a, come on thing, what are you doing? Creating a budget insert. Sorry, I'm trying to get this back in the frame. So if that's something you would be interested in, having a budget insert where you could set a budget for each category and have that to coordinate with this, let me know, because I've been playing around with the layout for that, kind of based on the Dave Ramsey budget thing and suggestions and categories and all that. So anyways, let me know if you want me to do a budget insert, and also let me know if you'd like to see, like have like a downloadable copy of a blank Excel spreadsheet. I could do that for you too. So that is how I expense track, how we budget, how we do our basic day-to-day finance, home finances. All right, guys, let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next